Hello, I'm Steve Lusk with the Red Bank Church of Christ. Today is Monday, September 28th, 2020, and I'm here to share with you some thoughts from our His Life devotional book. All this year, we've been looking at this devotional book that has walked us through the life of Jesus, looking at his life, his relationships, people he encountered, his miracles that he performed, and certainly the teaching that he proclaimed while he was here on earth. More recently, we've been looking primarily at the Sermon on the Mount, which is a classic, simple, and yet so profound sermon that Jesus proclaimed as recorded in Matthew chapters 5 through 7. And today we're going to look at a section from Matthew chapter 7. I want to start by asking this. Have you ever known someone who always seemed to find the negative, always seemed to find the flaw? Maybe there was something that wasn't just quite right about the meal that was served. Maybe it was too salty or not salty enough. Maybe the bread was too cold. Maybe the potatoes were a little bit too lumpy. Whatever it may have been, they always seemed to find the one thing in the meal that wasn't just perfect and to point that out. Or maybe they looked at a paper that you had worked so hard to write and they noticed the syntax errors, or they noticed the spelling mistakes, or they say you missed a punctuation mark there. Some people just seem to have that flaw of always trying to find the mistake, always trying to find the speck. And Jesus dealt with that here in this passage that we want to share today from Matthew chapter 7, verses 1 through 5. Jesus said, "Judge not, that you be not judged. For with the judgment you pronounce, you will be judged, and with the measure you use, it will be measured to you. Why do you see the speck that is in your brother's eye, but do not notice the log that is in your own eye? Or how can you say to your brother, 'Let me take the speck out of your eye,' when there is a log in your own eye? You hypocrite. First take the log out of your own eye, and then you'll see clearly to take the speck out of your brother's eye." I love what Jesus says here in verse number 3 especially. Why do you see the speck that is in your brother's eye? Jesus says the person that is the speck inspector is a hypocrite. Why? Because usually the one who finds the speck has a flaw that is just as noticeable or perhaps more obvious than the flaw that they found in you. They have a beam or a log or a plank sticking out of their eye when they see the speck in your eye. You see, the fact is that this is not so much a passage about discernment. We've sometimes misapplied this. Judge not that you be not judged. Well, I can't judge you. I'm not in the place of God to judge you. And that's really not what Jesus is talking about. He's talking about looking for the flaws in people rather than acknowledging the fact that we all have mistakes in our own lives. We all have flaws in our own lives. And this was a message primarily to those people in Jesus' culture who were hypocritical, especially religious hypocrites, who would wear their long robes and parade about in pious fashion, but they had things in their lives that were undergirding those lives that were not moral, that were not right, all the while pointing out the mistakes that many other people were making. That's the challenge for us as we try to imitate or emulate his life. You see, Jesus encountered all people, and while he saw the mistakes that they made, he was gracious and merciful to them. And he extends that mercy to us and expects us as his followers to extend that mercy to others because, yes, we have specks in our eyes. We have sawdust in our eyes. We may even have a plank in our eye that needs to be cleaned out before we go and start correcting someone else. Now, Jesus is not saying we don't hold each other accountable. He's not saying we don't help each other remove specks, but he's saying let's just be careful that we're not speck inspectors first, that we understand from our perspective of our own weaknesses and flaws and failings that others have those as well. And let's be merciful. Let's be gracious to them rather than be condemning or judgmental toward them as compared to us, because all of us fall under the same condemnation of sin. In fact, Jesus came to save us from that sin, and we're certainly so grateful and ought to live our lives in gratitude for what Jesus has done for us. You see, as we try to imitate his life, We want to live our lives like Jesus. And Jesus was always gracious and merciful toward those he met. Let's be the same kind of person. Let's don't be a spec inspector. Let's make sure that we look at ourselves first and see our own flaws, our own mistakes, our own needs, and then be gracious in reaching out to others to help to meet their needs. Here at the Red Bank Church of Christ, we're concerned about your needs. If there's anything we can do to help you, then please let us know. Perhaps you have a prayer request that we can help to meet, to honor you in some way by praying to the Almighty God for your needs. Please let us know about that. If there's another need, a Bible question that you have, then please contact us here, and we'll be glad to do all we can to point you in the right direction and help you along the way. That's what following after his life is all about. Thank you for watching. You have a great day.